諦めてんじゃねえの。
多分これどうせまた今年も時期だな。ああしょうがねえやなんとって
口には出さないけどね。
な
これで失敗した時の恐ろしさ。あんなに迷惑かけといて、何このざまみたいな。
そくそに言われて。
The day of the festival, more than 110,000 onlookers have gathered. The Ryusei approaches the launch pad. It's carefully brought up and set in place. Before ignition, a prayer is given to the gods for the security of the town and its people. It's ignition time at last. It's a success, and the fireworks look brilliant. The men are overjoyed. The Ryusei flies high into the sky. The rockets carry the prayers for peace and security of the farmers living in a harsh environment. There is a mountain that can be seen from anywhere in the Chichibu Basin. Mount Buko. It's said that a water god with the form of a dragon lives there. The mountain is made of a massive limestone. It's an ingredient in cement. Cement from Mount Buko made major contributions to Japan's economic growth. From the 1950s to the 70s, it was used in large quantities for items like bullet train tracks and highways, improving the infrastructure. One man has kept capturing Mount Buko on film over the years. He is Yoshio Tomita, born and raised in Chichibu. Today, Mount Buko has been stripped down almost to its peak. More than 50 years ago, it looked quite imposing.
本当に身を削って尽くすっていうのはこのことかなと思いましたね。秩父人にはどのぐらい役に立ったかわからない貢献した山ですね。
Sericulturists cause silkworm to make cocoons and produce raw silk. The business has flourished in Chichibu for countless years. From the 19th to the 20th century, raw silk was Japan's chief export. However, in 1882, the worldwide price of raw silk crashed. Life became tough, and Chichibu farmers rose up as one to protest their condition. The government of that time chose to put down the revolt with force. The incident resulted in many deaths. But Chichibu's raw silk industry continued on. In the 1920s, mechanization allowed silk goods to be mass-produced. Due to their avant-garde designs and reasonable price, they were popular with the women of the time. After 1945, synthetic fibers caused demand for silk goods to drop. But silk production continues even today. Toyoji Miyazaki has been raising silkworms for 60 years.
農家の経済を支えてきたのが養蚕ですからね。できる限りは蚕を続けていきたいと。
Near the center of the Chichibu Basin, there is Chichibu Shrine. Every December, an important sacred ritual is held here. The cocoons of that year are offered to the gods. There is a legend concerning silkworm raising in Chichibu. A goddess appeared in front of a poor couple and told them to line up mulberry leaves. Upon doing so, white cocoons appeared in the mulberry. The legend says that silkworm raising here was taught by the gods. The amazing Chichibu Night Festival is carried out along with the cocoon offering. The men handily carry a 13-ton parade float. Two floats pass each other over and over again in town. The men show their skill by causing them to pass right on the verge of crashing together. One of the floats enters a tent. The decorations are taken off. Boards are attached. And the float becomes a stage. A kabuki performance begins. A silk market used to be run at the same time as the night festival in Chichibu. The kabuki started as a way to entertain customers. Many spectacles await. The men behind the scenes. This kabuki performance, born of the Chichibu people's hospitality, has continued for more than 300 years. Night falls. The portable shrine advances through town. It is said that the goddess of Chichibu Shrine rides this. They go towards Mount Bukol, where the dragon water god lives. The lit-up floats move along. The people exert all the energy they have to pull the giant floats along. The once-a-year meeting of the goddess who supported Chichibu and the dragon god is the climax of this festival. Fireworks giving thanks to the gods shoot into the sky. Chichibu, nestled within countless mountains, praying to the gods and hosting festivals, has protected a way of life.
Journeys in Japan. Cycle around Japan. Aizu. 300 kilometers of hard riding.
Another steep bed. Come on.
A mountainous region where traditional culture still thrives. Don't miss it.
Sorry, I didn't find a device named computer. Turn off this lights. Good morning, everyone. How we doing today? Just turn this down a little bit so I can hear myself. Welcome to the Morning Mile. Morning Miles. Today we're going to be biking 2 miles, watching some NHK, talking about the news. You know, usual stuff. Just get all set up here. Oh yeah. Distance, reset it. Good girl. Let's start it out.
It's a Monday night here in Japan. I'm James Tengan in Tokyo. This is NHK Newsline. The global economy is breathing a slight sigh of relief after the U.S. and China struck a temporary trade truce. The U.S. declared a 90-day ceasefire on all new tariffs. The announcement follows a meeting between the U.S. president and his Chinese counterpart after the G20. Trump had threatened to raise duties on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods from 10 to 25% on January 1st. Now his administration said it's suspending the plan. The White House says Beijing has agreed to purchase a substantial amount of energy, farm, and industrial products to reduce the trade imbalance with Washington. Leveling it has been a key priority for Trump and has formed part of the tit-for-tat billion-dollar trade dispute between the two countries. In a statement, the U.S. press secretary says the countries have also agreed to enter into negotiations on intellectual property protection and cybercrime. If no agreement is reached within 90 days, the tariffs would go up. The U.S. has accused China of stealing its intellectual property. For more on this trade agreement will impact the world's economy, we reached out to an expert on Chinese-U.S. relations for his take.
expert, you say?
If this negotiation become very successful,
for global studies.
many, almost all of countries, all of companies in the world are very happy. This is very good news.
Very happy.
Because the trade war between the United States and China is not only bilateral problem, but including all over the world.
There's our first half mile.
As of now, he says the agreement is superficial, and it's too early to declare it a compromise or concession by the U.S. Instead, Kiyoyuki Seguchi calls it a shift in Trump's attitude towards China following the U.S. midterms. He says Trump wants a strong economy leading into the 2020 presidential election and needs to smooth over his trade relationship with Beijing. But Seguchi says trade is just part of the power struggle between the U.S. and China.
This negotiation about trade issue is a very small part, but the reason of the threat is total military power and total economic power. So very comprehensive. So even after the successful result of the trade issues, still their tension will continue.
To be successful, he says, the Chinese need to come up with concrete and bold reforms to give Trump what he wants. Meanwhile, Trump says China has agreed to lower tariffs on U.S. automobiles from the current 40%. Trump made the announcement on Twitter on Sunday. Earlier, U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer took issue with the tariffs, saying they're about 1.5 times higher than U.S. duties on Chinese vehicles. Lighthizer said he will look at all options to equalize the two. China's reported decision is believed to be one reason why the U.S. is postponing its plan to impose additional tariffs on Chinese imports from January. The Trump administration apparently hopes to use the Chinese decision to highlight its efforts to protect the U.S. auto industry.
All right.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson declined to say whether China did in fact decide to reduce the tariffs. Diplomacy over the future of the Korean Peninsula looks like it could be gaining momentum again after differences in negotiations stalled denuclearization talks. The American president says he plans to meet North Korea's leader in January or February, which will become their second meeting. And the South's president says it's possible Kim Jong-un will visit Seoul by the end of the year. After leaving the G20, Moon Jae-in told reporters how Donald Trump wants him to deliver several messages to Kim, including that Trump likes him.
Trump asked me to tell Kim that he wants to implement the rest of the agreements and also fulfill Kim's wishes.
All right. Second mile coming up.
Moon didn't specify what those wishes were, but he said he hopes Trump and Kim will discuss a time frame for progress, including denuclearization and easing sanctions. As for Kim's visit to Seoul, he hoped it'll take place, but notes it's still up in the air.
Whether Chairman Kim Jong-un visits Seoul depends on him. Let's see what happens.
Trump and Kim held a historic first summit in June and reached a vague agreement to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula, but their governments haven't agreed on how. Kim's visit to Seoul was something he and Moon agreed on when they met in September. Meanwhile, Moon also spoke about South Korea's relationship with Japan, noting that Tokyo's cooperation is needed on denuclearization. And the president offered up his first remarks about a series of Supreme Court rulings on wartime labor that have soured ties between the two countries.
I think the relationship with Japan should be future-oriented, and cooperation should not be undermined because of historical issues.
Last week, South Korea's top court ordered one of Japan's biggest manufacturers to compensate former Korean workers. They said they were forced to work in the factories of Mitsubishi Heavy Industries during World War II. The court also handed down a similar ruling in October. It ordered a Japanese steelmaker to pay 4 Korean men almost $90,000 each.
A mile and a half.
Japan's government has pushed back against those rulings. It says any right to claims was settled completely and finally in 1965, when the two countries normalized ties. The country's top government spokesperson reiterated Tokyo's stance.
Relations between Japan and South Korea are in a precarious state. Japan's position when it comes to wartime labour, those referred to as comfort women, and other issues, is consistent. We will continue to urge Seoul to deal with these matters appropriately.
South Korea's top court ruled in 2012 that individual workers have the right to seek compensation from Japanese companies for wartime labor. More than 10 other lawsuits are working their way through lower courts. Japan's defense minister says landfill work for the controversial relocation of an American military base in Okinawa will begin next week.
We have notified the local Okinawan government that the landfill work will start from December 14th.
A ministry regional bureau has already started loading soil and sand onto a vessel for transport to the site. The work is part of the planned relocation of U.S. Marine Corps Futenma Air Station from an urban to a less populated part of Okinawa. Dozens of people gathered at the site to protest the resumption of work. Some skirmished with police. They say their voices are not being represented in the Japanese legal system.
Just started a little voice before it too. I want to thank everyone for tuning in for the morning miles. Encourage you all to do a little exercise in the morning as well. With the next couple of weeks, I will start doing this for charity, where if you want to donate, all the donations during this bid will probably go to cancer research. It's close to my heart, so.
Okinawa Governor Deni Tamaki protested the move, saying the government failed to submit necessary documents for starting the work.
Let's go ahead and stop this in HK.
The Defense Bureau.
There we go. Thank you all for watching. Greatly appreciate everything that you do.